Welcome to the latest edition of our Seafood News Roundup, sponsored by Urner Barry's Foreign Trade Data. I'm Seafood News Editor Michael Ramsing, and joining me today at the news desk is nobody. Jocelyn is out on vacation this week. We have a full show for you today. The crab industry produced two major stories this week, but before we talk about those, let's take a look at some of the other major news headlines reported by seafoodnews.com in the last week. The Global Aquaculture Alliance wrapped up its 19th annual Gold Conference in Guangzhou, China last week. SeafoodNews.com's John Sackton reported from the four-day conference and said it was one of the best versions of the event in many years. The conference was heavily integrated into the Chinese seafood industry, with 20 to 30 Chinese exporters in attendance. Many of the roundtable discussions were improved to include a detailed presentation and then reactions and observations from notable industry participants. The event was also very candid in its discussions about the conflicting certification schemes currently plaguing the seafood industry. Next year's Gold Conference will be held the week of October 2nd in Dublin, Ireland. In some other Alaskan salmon news, a report from the state's Department of Fish and Game said Bristol Bay's commercial sockeye harvest was 26% above the preseason forecast and the second best season in the last 20 years. At the same time, estimates say the ex-vessel value for Bristol Bay's reds is 40% above the 20-year average for the fishery. Meanwhile, Alaska's pink salmon fishermen did not fare nearly as well this season, as the state's humpy catch to date was about 50 million fish short of its preseason forecast. Alaska's Governor Bill Walker officially requested the federal government to declare the 2016 pink salmon season a disaster so the region's fishermen can get some funding to make up for the poor production. Elsewhere, Hawaii's longline fleet says they are making rapid progress in implementing reforms following an Associated Press story that uncovered forced labor, trafficking, and poor working conditions on American-owned and operated longline vessels that use foreign crew. A task force came up with the Universal Crew Contract that was designed to reveal features of labor agreements that can lead to abuse and forced labor. The industry also identified access to the Honolulu Fish Auction as a choke point in the distribution process that would allow for enforcement against vessels that do not use either the standard contract or permit full interviews and audits of their crew practices. Additionally, longliners say a rapid assessment of the working conditions and treatment of the crew in the fleet is being implemented. Remember to get these and more daily stories from around the seafood industry by subscribing to SeafoodNews.com. We now turn to the U.S. crab industry for this week's top stories. First, health officials are optimistic that California's commercial Dungeness crab season will get going on time this season. California is commencing early tests for the domoic acid toxin in the state's Dungeness crab, and while the results show the toxin is present in the crabs, the levels are within normal ranges for this time of the year. This is a big difference compared to last fall when the crabs were showing excessively high levels of the toxin because of unusually warm Pacific waters. These levels persisted well into last year's fall and winter months and resulted in a 4-month delay to the commercial Dungeness crab season. So far, this does not seem like it will be the case for the 2016 season, which is scheduled to start on November 15th. Finally, the situation is starting to look bleak for Alaska's commercial barred-eye crabbing season. Unless the Alaska Board of Fish agrees to schedule an emergency hearing on the fishery in the next several days, the industry is looking at no season until 2019 at the earliest. This is because a summer survey of the fishery showed the female population of the stock was below the minimum count required for state officials to commence the season. Now, the stock minimum must be met in the next 2 years' worth of surveys before Alaska can consider opening the fishery. The Alaska Bering Sea Crabbers filed an emergency petition earlier this month asking the Alaska Board of Fish to reconsider their harvest policy for the fishery. The board has until October 9th to respond, which is a tight window since fishing is scheduled to start on October 15th. And that's it for today's program, which was brought to you today by Urner Barry's Foreign Trade Data Service. You know, it was a busy week for the FDA. The administration released a series of videos to explain seafood risk analysis, recalled some salmon products, and redefined what healthy means on food labels. But subscribers to Foreign Trade Data know all about what the FDA was up to this week because they received daily trade alerts intended to keep seafood importers up to speed with all the regulations impacting their business. But that's not all Foreign Trade Data has to offer. A quarterly subscription allows users to track seafood import and export data straight from the U.S. Department of Commerce and gives them access to the latest seafood warning letters, refusals, and import alerts from the FDA. Learn more about the most robust import and export data platform available to seafood industry professionals by visiting foreigntradedata.com or call our sales team at 732-240-5330 to get a free trial and tutorial of the service. Let us know how we're doing by tweeting at us on Twitter at SeafoodComNews or at Urner Barry, and like Urner Barry and Seafood News on Facebook to learn more about what we're up to. Once again, I'm Michael Ramsing. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all again soon.